This isn't just stress, it's emotional burnout, and you're not alone. There's a kind of exhaustion no one talks about, the kind that doesn't show up in blood tests or x-rays, but still empties you from the inside out. You wake up tired. You smile when you want to cry. You say, "I'm fine," because what else can you say? But deep down, you know this isn't just stress. It's something heavier, something lonelier. And here's the truth no one says out loud. Stress doesn't steal your joy, emotional burnout does. And you can't fix it with a weekend off or a bubble bath. You're not weak. You're not broken. You're burned out. And your soul is asking for something deeper. And in the next few minutes, we're going to gently begin that return. Back to you. There's a kind of tiredness that doesn't show up on your face, but weighs heavy in your chest. You smile. You answer messages. You say, "I'm fine," because explaining would take more energy than you have. And the truth is, most people wouldn't understand it anyway. This isn't just being tired, it's emotional burnout. The kind where your nervous system is always tight, your thoughts always spinning, and no amount of sleep brings peace. You wake up already behind, already depleted, and the smallest things, a text, a noise, a task, feel enormous. You know this feeling, don't you? Sometimes emotional burnout looks like overachievement. You push yourself harder because you're afraid of stopping. You don't want to disappoint anyone. You don't want to be seen as lazy or weak. But deep down, there's a version of you waving a white flag, whispering, "Please slow down. I can't keep carrying all of this." Your body knows the truth, even when your mind won't listen. That tightness in your shoulders, the tension in your jaw, the insomnia at night, it's not just stress. It's a soul calling out for mercy. We've been taught to measure worth by productivity, by how much we can hold without breaking. But what if burnout isn't a weakness? What if it's your body's last attempt to protect you? A sacred rebellion from the inside. That shaking in your hands, the fog in your thoughts, it's not failure. It's a signal. You're not meant to live in survival mode forever. You were made for presence, for joy, for something softer than this constant fight. And here's the part no one talks about. Burnout isn't loud. It's silent. It hides behind busy schedules and half-hearted yes. It creeps in slowly, disguised as being strong. But strength doesn't mean self-abandonment. You weren't born to betray your own needs. That ache in your chest? That's your soul asking to be heard again. And maybe that's why you're here now, not to fix anything. Just to listen, to remember. Have you noticed how often you clench your jaw without realizing? Or hold your breath when reading a message? Your body is trying to survive a life that's moving too fast for your soul. Emotional burnout lives in the spaces we ignore, the spaces where our own voice was silenced. But still it waits, inside you, not broken, just buried, just tired of pretending everything's okay. What would happen if you gave yourself permission to stop? Not forever, just for a moment, to place your hand over your heart, to let the silence speak. The universe so doesn't expect you to be perfect, only present. That's all. Just here, just breathing. And if even that feels like too much, then let me hold this space with you. You don't have to shine right now. You just have to stay. Stay and notice what's still alive inside you, even beneath the exhaustion. I wonder, when was the last time someone looked at you and really saw your tiredness? Not the kind sleep cures, but the one that's spiritual, the kind that asks for more than coffee and coping, the kind that asks for healing. This isn't just about stress relief, it's about reconnection. And burnout recovery begins when we stop asking, "How can I keep going?" and start asking, What am I carrying that no longer belongs to me? And that's where we'll begin. Your mind might move on, but your body remembers. It remembers every time you pushed through when you needed to rest. Every time you swallowed your truth to keep the peace. Every night you couldn't sleep, not because you weren't tired, but because your soul was restless. Emotional burnout isn't just in your head. It lives in your chest, in your breath, in that ache behind your eyes when no one's looking. It's the way you flinch when your phone lights up. It's the sigh that escapes when you're finally alone. The weight you carry is real, even when it's invisible. You may not talk about it, but your nervous system has been shouting for years. That pressure in your temples, that heaviness in your limbs, that's not laziness, it's mental exhaustion. And there's a difference. You're not lazy, you're overloaded. You've been absorbing more than you were ever meant to carry. Taking care of everyone else, performing calm, smiling through overwhelm. But now your body is asking for something radical. Presence. Not productivity, just presence. Do you notice how often you forget to breathe deeply? Like really breathe. Not the shallow kind that keeps you surviving, but the slow, full kind that tells your heart you're safe now. That's what emotional burnout steals. First, your breath, your softness, your slowness. But what if you gave yourself permission to exhale today? What if your healing didn't need to be dramatic, just honest? What if the deepest stress relief wasn't in doing more, but in doing less, mindfully, lovingly? You see, mindfulness isn't about clearing your mind of all thoughts. It's about coming back to yourself again and again, even when your thoughts are messy, even when your heart is aching, especially then. You don't have to be perfect to deserve peace. You don't have to earn rest. The universe so already placed that right inside your being. The right to pause, to feel, to let go. You don't need a crisis to make it sacred. You just need to say, I'm allowed to stop. Self-care isn't always candles and tea. Sometimes it's turning off notifications, saying no without guilt, leaving the room when your body says enough. Sometimes it's crying in the shower or laying on the floor, hand over your chest, just listening to your heartbeat whisper, you're still here. You're still worthy. That's spiritual healing, the kind that doesn't need permission, the kind that begins where performance ends. And I know that's scary, but you're not doing this alone. The burnout you're feeling, it's not just mental. It's emotional. It's physical. It's spiritual. That's why no one solution has worked so far. Because the healing you need isn't external. It's internal. And sometimes the deepest cure is stillness. So tell me, what has your body been trying to say that you've been too busy to hear? Can you soften your shoulders right now? Unclench your jaw. Place your hand over your belly and say, I hear you. That's not small. That's a revolution. And maybe, just maybe, the next layer of healing begins not in what you do, but in what you stop doing. I remember the exact moment I realized something was off. I was sitting at my desk, answering emails with a knot in my stomach. Nothing was wrong, technically, but everything felt empty. Like I was floating just outside my body, watching my life happen without me. That's how emotional burnout sneaks in. Not with chaos, but with quiet detachment. You're still functioning, still replying, still performing. But inside, you feel like a ghost in your own skin. Have you ever felt that? Like you're living but not really alive? For weeks, I told myself it was just a phase. I'm just tired. I need a vacation. But no amount of rest touched that numbness. The laughter didn't land the same. The days blurred together. Even music, the one thing that always reached me, felt distant. That's when I understood this wasn't just stress. It was soul fatigue, mental exhaustion so deep, it had stolen my ability to feel present. I wasn't just burned out, I was disconnected from myself. The scariest part? No one could tell. I looked fine. I even laughed at jokes. But inside, I was unraveling. And the worst thought kept whispering, is this all life is now? That's when I started practicing mindfulness, not as a trend, but as a lifeline. One breath at a time, one pause at a time. I'd sit in silence and say, universe, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm listening. And slowly, not all at once, I began to feel my soul knock on the door again. Burnout recovery isn't a single moment. It's 100 tiny choices to return to yourself, like choosing to breathe before you respond, or canceling plans without apologizing, or stepping outside at sunset just to remember you're still part of something bigger. That's how I started healing, not by fixing my whole life overnight, but by noticing the small things that made me feel human again. A warm cup of tea, the weight of a blanket, the sound of rain. Can you feel those moments in your own day? If your soul feels far from your life, I promise you're not broken. You're just tired, deeply, spiritually tired. And that's not something to be ashamed of. The universe so sees you, even when no one else does, even when your inbox is full and your heart feels empty. Especially then. This isn't about being dramatic, it's about being honest. Can you be honest today? With yourself? Can you admit that you're not okay and still choose to be gentle? Self-care doesn't always look like taking a break. Sometimes, it's admitting you forgot how to enjoy anything at all, and still showing up with curiosity, still breathing, still staying with yourself in the quiet. That's spiritual healing. That's bravery. I know what it feels like to want to disappear. But listen to me, you're not meant to disappear. You're meant to reappear. Slowly, tenderly, without pressure to get back to normal. You don't need to be the old you. You just need to be here now. Somewhere along the way, we were taught that burnout is a personal failure. That if we're exhausted, it's because we didn't manage our time well enough. That if we're anxious, it's because we're not strong enough. But what if none of that is true? What if emotional burnout is not weakness, but a sacred pause? A divine signal from the universe saying, something here is no longer aligned with your soul. Not to shame you, but to redirect you gently. You weren't meant to carry the weight of 10 lives. You weren't meant to be available 24/7, answering messages with your heart half empty. Burnout recovery doesn't happen when you push through. It begins when you stop long enough to feel what hurts, what aches, what's been ignored. That tightness in your chest, that forgetfulness, that irritability that surprises even you. It's your nervous system begging for stillness, not escape, but presence. I've had moments where I thought I was just bad at life. Couldn't keep up, couldn't focus, couldn't even enjoy things I used to love. But what I really needed was permission to stop pretending I was okay, to step outside the noise, to sit with my breath and remember, I'm not a machine. I'm a soul, and my pace doesn't have to match the world's speed. Maybe yours doesn't either. Maybe that's what burnout has been trying to tell you all along. We glorify hustle. We reward performance. But the truth is, the moments that saved me weren't loud or productive. They were quiet, slow, like sitting on the floor with no plan, letting tears come without trying to stop them, listening to rain, placing a hand on my chest and whispering, I'm tired and that's okay. That was the first moment I felt peace again. Not because I fixed anything, but because I stopped fighting myself. Have you ever done that? Just stopped? Not to collapse, but to listen, to feel the sacredness of stillness. It's in that space that spiritual healing happens. not with fireworks, but with a soft breath, with a long exhale, with the simple truth: you are not your productivity. You are not your to-do list. You are a living, breathing being, deserving of care, of silence, of softness. Even now, especially now. Can you believe that? Burnout doesn't mean you're broken. It means you've outgrown a version of life that no longer holds your truth. It's not an ending, it's a threshold. And thresholds are sacred. They ask you to pause, to question, to shed what no longer fits. So let me ask you this: what are you still doing just to be loved? What pressure are you carrying that was never yours to begin with? And what would happen if you laid it down even for one night? There's a kind of healing that doesn't look like healing at all. It looks like lying awake at 2 a.m., your mind looping through unfinished conversations. It looks like forgetting to respond to texts, like making toast for dinner again, like staring at a wall for 10 minutes and calling that rest. And still, this is part of burnout recovery. Emotional burnout doesn't unravel in beautiful stages. It dissolves in strange, slow ways, in sighs, in small choices, in moments no one applauds, but still matter. I remember a week when I did nothing but survive. I didn't meditate. I didn't journal. I just breathed, sat in silence, took deep, clumsy breaths in the dark, and whispered to the universe, "So, is this healing?" It doesn't feel like anything. But that's the thing. Healing doesn't always feel holy. Sometimes it feels like grief, like boredom, like apathy, like you're not getting better fast enough. But you are, in the most invisible, quiet ways. Self-care isn't always inspiring. Sometimes it's brushing your teeth when you feel numb, washing the dishes when you'd rather cry, putting on clean clothes even if you're staying home all day. It's listening to your breath, even when your thoughts scream. It's choosing not to spiral when you feel like you're disappearing. That's spiritual healing too. It's not always graceful. Sometimes it's messy, sacred survival. And that is enough. Do you ever feel guilty for not being productive with your healing? For not doing all the rituals, routines, and mindfulness techniques every day? Me too. But let me tell you something I've learned. Even when you can't do the big things, the universe still meets you in the small ones. In the exhale, in the moment you soften your shoulders, in the 3 seconds you place your hand over your heart and whisper, "I'm still here." Anxiety relief doesn't always come in one deep breath. Sometimes it takes 10 or 20 or silence. Sometimes it comes through crying in the shower or laughing unexpectedly while watching something silly. Sometimes the healing comes when you stop trying to be the best version of yourself and start being the most honest version. The one who's tired, confused, awake at night with insomnia, but still choosing to stay. The kind of healing that doesn't look like healing is often the most powerful. Because it's real, it's lived, it's felt in the bones, and it reminds you, you don't need to be fixed to be whole. You are not behind. You are in process. You are in bloom, even if no one else can see it yet. Can you trust that? Even now, even in the stillness that doesn't speak, the universe hasn't forgotten you. It's just waiting for you to slow down enough to feel the shift. You don't need a reason to come back to yourself. Not a crisis, not a breakdown, not a perfect excuse to finally pause. Sometimes healing begins simply because you're tired of being away from your softness, from your breath, from your inner stillness that was never lost, just buried beneath everything you thought you had to be. This isn't about becoming new. It's about remembering the way your body feels when it isn't performing, the way your soul sounds when it finally has room to whisper again. Burnout recovery doesn't require a transformation. It requires tenderness. It begins when you stop asking, "What should I do?" and start asking, "What do I need to feel like myself again?" Maybe that's a long walk with no destination. or canceling plans without explanation, or lying on the floor with your hand on your chest, whispering, "I'm allowed to exist just like this." Serena taught me this silence, the kind that doesn't need to fix you, only hold you. Let that be your self-care tonight. Not fixing, just holding. And if you're still awake, eyes open in the dark, thoughts racing, that's okay. That's burnout's final echo. The body trying to let go of what it never had time to process. You can't sleep, not because you're broken, but because your nervous system hasn't exhaled in years. So here's what I want you to do. Place both hands over your heart. Breathe in for 4, out for 6, and say, "This is enough." Right now, you are enough. This is what spiritual healing looks like. Not a miracle, but a return. A return to the you that doesn't hustle for worth. The you that laughs when no one's watching. The you that cries without shame. The you that exists beyond burnout, beyond expectations, beyond who the world told you to be. You are allowed to belong to yourself again. No deadline, no permission slip. The universe has already said yes. The rest is just remembering. So if you're looking for a sign, this is it. You don't need to hustle harder. You don't need to glow up. You don't need to explain why you're so tired. You just need to return, softly, slowly, completely. Come back to yourself like you would return to a sacred space. Not with shame, but with reverence. With a quiet knowing, I never stopped being worthy. I just forgot. But now you remember. And that changes everything. I don't have to earn my rest. I don't have to prove my worth. Even now, in my stillness, in my burnout, in my breath, I am enough. If this felt like something your soul needed, tell me in the comments. I read every word, and this space is for you. Subscribe to Serena's Sanctuary for more videos like this, because healing doesn't happen all at once. It happens each time you choose not to abandon yourself. You're not broken. You're coming home.